Hello everyone, I'm back today with part 8 of the tutorial. Last time we completed this module, vaccine types. We had added add, edit, and delete, and everything was working fine. So today we'll try to organize this thing a little bit more. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you look at it, so these are the files. Index.html is the one that shows the list of vaccine types, and maintain is the one that does the edit piece. Now there's a lot of repetition that's going on. There's like a whole bunch of header stuff here, that's scripts, the CSS stuff, the menu that's in the header. The only thing that's different is the body actually, and also let's say we're going to add a footer at the end, then we have to repeat it. And the more files we add, let's say we add an employee, we add employee vaccine, we got other stuff we add, then we have to keep repeating these things. It's not a good idea. So we have to find a way to strip out the common piece and only keep working on the variables on a specific page, which is nothing but the body, this piece right here, more or less the sections. So let's see how do we do that. Before we do it, let's fix a couple of minor things. So fix our add. First of all, when I did click on edit, well, I'm going to make this color to be dark blue, and also this one, let's keep the name of the module the same, which I think we called it vaccine types. So how do I do that? Well, it's pretty simple. I think index, we're calling this thing right here vaccine type. So we're going to stick with that in maintain as well. That would be right in header right here, vaccine type. Another thing is, in this maintain, we used a class called form header, but we never defined it. So we're going to go to our CSS, which is site.css, and we're going to use the same class as this. It'll be dark blue background and white as the text. So I'm just going to put a comma and say, hey, we get another style sheet class. Teach is a standard HTML tag, but this is not. This is just our class. So for both of these, we're going to use the same color. So that should be it. So if I refresh this thing, and let's go click and edit, and there you go. This is vaccine types. Oh, actually, I want to do the reverse of it. This should be maintain vaccine type. That should be vaccine type. So we'll change there. Let's go back and fix that. Okay, so I think this should be here, and that should be there. Okay, let's look at this. That's good. Okay, so now let's try to add a little footer as well. Now let's go back to our index. We're going to try to add a footer, just kind of like a little standard copyright blah 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 thing. Alright, how do I do that? Well, let's go back to the page, and of course right after section we're just going to add a little footer section. That would be our footer, and then let's say we wanted to say something like, it would be a div class, so a little container right there, and then in there all we want to do is just show a paragraph. And of course we wanted to align it to be center, and then let's put something like use the copyright and we don't want to hard code it, so we're just gonna put the text right here. So we're gonna get it from the resources. Let's call that resources something like copyright. Well, let's define that in the message properties. Go back here and say copyright equals to 2020 and come back to the page. You refresh. Let's see how that looks. Oh, not bad. But what I want to do is I want to keep this footer all the way at the bottom always, and have like some kind of dark light gray color. So we should be able to do that with the style sheet. So let's quickly do that. So we're going to head back to the site.css, and then let's just add a custom footer style sheet. So here we're going to say is, hey, position, it is absolute, fixed, and we're going to say it is, let's say height, we'll just put 50 pixels, and it's going to be bottom, and then width be 100%, and let's put a background color, and put some padding, of course, so it kind of looks good. 15 pixels. Alright, that should be it. And let's just see how that looks. And there you go. That's kind of looks nice. So we want this at the bottom. So now you get a header, which is our menu, and we got a body, and we got a footer. So now we need to kind of make this thing common. So how do I do it? Well, Thymeleaf has something called fragment and layout fragments. So that's what we're going to use. The very first thing we need to do is we're going to go to our Maven, because we need to import that library, and the library is called Thymeleaf layout dialect. So I'm just going to grab that and put it, it doesn't matter where you put it, but I like to put it right after Thymeleaf so that we know this is Thymeleaf stuff. So that's the first thing we want to do, that we were using something called Thymeleaf layout. Then doesn't matter which one you copy, but since this was the first one, I'm just going to go ahead and use this one to get started with instead of typing everything. It's a good idea to put your fragment in a separate directory, so I'm just going to go ahead and create a new folder called fragments, because we're going to have a lot of fragments in there, hopefully. Well, at least 3. So there you go. And then come back to the file, the index.html file, and go to File, Save As a starting point, and expand that, go to Fragments, and save as layout. Say OK. Alright, so that would be the very first one, layout. And then we're probably going to need a couple of more, because we're going to have a header, and we're going to have a footer. So we're just going to do File, Save As in the same place, all of them in the fragment. Okay, then this layout will turn into a common layout. Now how do I do it? Well, the very first thing is we're going to use some new namespace in the tag. So we have this Thymeleaf, which is great. In order to use the layout, we have to use another separate namespace. That would be this layout namespace, which is good. Now most of these things are going to be the same for the layout. So we're going to have this head, all these script tags, and all the way up to here is great. And then the body, of course, we're going to have the background, which is good. Now if you look at this header section, is kind of like that's our menu items. So that would be a good thing to put in a common place called header.html. So that's what we're going to do. So what we'll do is we're going to go ahead and change that to be the header. So let's go ahead, delete this. In here, Thymeleaf allows us to create something called a block. So basically says this is going to be a block, and that block, you need to replace that block with, now here we're going to say whatever our page starts, which is actually right here. From there we'll have a directory called fragments. So fragments, slash, and let's say we'll have a file called header. Now that's the name of the file, which is header.html, and then we also need to put this to say what do you want to call this. We want to call that a header. Okay, and that should be it. And there you go. Okay, so that's our header block. So I'm just going to copy this so that I can kind of do the same thing. Now if you look at it, we're going to have a h1 always, so that would be the there. That would be changing, but we'll figure out a way to do it. And then this piece changes, this whole entire thing inside the section, so that needs to be replaced. So we're gonna have to do something about that. So let's go ahead, delete that, and replace that with another block. Now this block would be a little different because we're not gonna automatically statically replace it. We're gonna have to put new stuff every time a new content comes in. So this one, we're gonna say that this is gonna be a layout and a little piece of fragment in there. And then we just need to name this thing. We're gonna call that a content. And whenever we create one of these fragments, we're just gonna name it content. It will automatically be replaced on this section. All right, then we're gonna go ahead and copy this guy and say that, well, then we have a footer. Simple as that. And we're gonna denote that by footer and call that footer. And that's it. Then we can just remove this. So that's basically, that becomes our main layout. Okay, we got all of these initialize head sections. Then we got inside the body, we got the background, that's always going to be the same. Then we have the header section that we're going to replace with this header in a second. And then we'll have the actual h1, and then we'll have this section replaced dynamically by different blocks. So for view, it's going to be a list of tables, and for maintain, it's going to be our edit. So we'll see how we're going to do that. And then we have our footer always. So it's there. Now let's go ahead and fix this header thing. So the header thing is nothing but we don't really care of any of that. And of course, we're going to need the namespace. So let's just copy that. Okay, and of course we already defined that body's background. We don't need to redo it again here. We definitely going to need this piece, header, right here. So we keep that, and the rest of them we can pretty much get rid of it, except the body, because it's going to be replaced inside the body. I think, let's see, let's go ahead and save this. But of course, looks like header, yes. So here, instead of that, what we're going to do is we're going to say that, hey, this is really a block, and this block is nothing but it's a fragment, and this fragment we're calling it header because that's what we called it there, and that would be it. Okay, let's do the footer. Footer will be similar, so we're going to go to the footer, and we really don't need all the way from here. Well, first of all, let's add our namespace in here, which is this, and we definitely don't need any of that stuff. All that can go away, and only thing we're gonna insert here is basically footer. So I'm gonna go ahead and copy instead of just typing this. Go back here and not that one, and say this is nothing but a footer, and that's kind of it. Alright, there you go. So there's our header, footer. I think I deleted too much, maybe. We need the the body back, of course. Alright, so we got header, footer, and the content in the layout. Now it's all good. Now how do I take this piece and replace that to say that, hey, I'm only going to need to put everything inside section and nothing else? Let's see how we're going to do that. Well, first of all, of course, we have to use the new namespace, which is the layout. It's always there. It's this. Then here we are going to say is, hey, we are going to use the layout. And how do I say that? I say layout decorate, and then we need to specify which layout we're going to use. And of course, you start with this tilde character, and you basically specify wherever my pages start. From there, fragment is like a scripting language. Fragment, that was S, and then layout. That was the name of our file. So basically saying from there, go to fragments and then go to layout. That's the layout that we're going to use. Fair enough. And then of course we don't need to do anything else. It knows what to put. Delete all that. We don't need to put anything in the body. We already know that that's what's going to happen. We don't need to put anything in the header because header is already going to be there. H1 also is going to be there. The only thing we're going to replace is basically the section is also going to be there, if you remember. So only thing and all of this can go away. The only thing we're going to replace is this, and that's about it. And here we just need to put another little div section. Let's get that. And in this div section, we're going to say that it's a layout, and it's going to be a fragment equals, and we need to name that. If you remember, we called it contents. We're going to say that this is going to be the content, and do not keep this div in here. So that's why you just got to say remove this specific tag. All you got to do is remove the specific div tag, but put everything else inside. So that's what that basically means. So that's pretty much it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and copy this little piece right here. It's the exact same thing. Go to the maintain, and we can pretty much replace from all the way here up to there. There you go. Let's delete this, of course, and then the section will no longer be there. And there we're just going to have one more div for this div right here, and that should be it, I think. Yep, just go ahead and close that, open it back again so that it kind of really, yeah, so everything looks good. So that's about it. And let's see how it does everything. I'm gonna go ahead, stop this, and let's go ahead, start it back up. Alright, let's see how it looks. Actually, I just realized that I forgot to close this tag, so this gotta be closed. That's in maintain, and also we have to make sure that this one is also closed, because we're going to get an error. Alright, so let's go back here and click on this vaccine types, and great, nothing has changed. Very good. So as you could see, you can edit and change it, and everything looks good. So now we have this thing in a layout, and nothing is hard-coded anymore multiple times. So our index becomes pretty simple. All it has is whatever the actual logic for the body is, and the rest of them is coming from the fragment layout. Now, one thing that we need to do, need to take care of, which is if you go to the fragment right now, we kind of hard-coded this header text to say that this is vaccine types. A good habit is, because we're not going to have any vaccine types, this is going to be common layout. We may have employee, we may have a registered users, other stuff in here. So instead of hard coding it, maybe we're going to get it from a variable. So I'm going to go ahead and call that variable page title. And whenever I render a page, I'm going to pass that as a variable. So let's go ahead and add it to the controller. So let's say for this index, when the index comes up, let's add another model attribute, which is called this. We called it page title there. And we're going to do this, and we're going to do something like this, get message. So go ahead and paste that. Now that one was called, I think, vaccine types, I think. That. So let's take that, the controller, and that was the message. And of course there was no parameter in there, so I'm just going to pass no. There you go. So that way that page title will be set to this, and it will automatically be loaded by the layout based on that variable if it's present. So that's when we're loading the index, which is the list of data. And also let's do the exact same thing when we are trying to do this guy, edit. Alright, let's check quickly to make sure everything's good. That's here. No message from under. Must have mistyped something. What was it called? Vaccine type. Sure. So no S. No S. Okay. Go back. Refresh. Alright, everything is good, and if I go click on edit, that comes up, all's good. Do this, everything is good. Let's try to add one. Let's see, test, CR, add it. Let's try to delete this. And deletes, and everything is good. Okay, great. Let's make one more minor change, which is, let's try to organize this thing. Instead of keeping this thing in the root, this is vaccine types, so we're going to go ahead and put it in its own folder. So let's call that vaccine type there, and I'm going to go ahead and move all of these things in there, which is great. But now the naming convention would change a little bit. So for instance, here what I'm going to say is, well, I'm going to start with at request mapping, which we're going to go ahead and start with vaccine type, of course, and then the rest of them I'll just leave it as is. But since I added vaccine type, this would be kind of like now the beginning of it. So starting from, let's go to the header where we have the navigation. So our navigation right here would be called vaccine type. Okay. Then let's go to our index. So here these would be vaccine type and then vaccine type and then vaccine type. I think we have to make one more changes. If we go to controller, first of all, this would not be index anymore. It's going to be vaccine type index, and the mapping, we don't need to put in a slash, just keep that empty. And then one more place, it's not going to be maintain anymore, it's going to be vaccine type / maintain, and that should be it. If we save it, there's one more place in the maintain where we have the button here, in the action. I think there we gotta go say vaccine type slash. I think that should be it. Let's see. Alright, so if I go straight to this link, it shouldn't work anymore, yeah, because I don't have anything on the root. So in order to go there, I have to type vaccine type and hit enter. There you go. That all works. I think this should work too. And then we should be able to click add. There it goes. Test, test, add, added. You can edit that and say to whatever add, and you should be able to delete it too. Okay, so everything looks good. So we basically just organized this a little bit more with first with templates and fragments, and then we put it in its own directory. So that next time, let's say we're going to actually try to add Spring Security next time, add authentication, login and password, and so that it would be in its own directory. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. I will put this in a GitHub, so watch for the link below the description of this video. Thanks.